It is not from books entirely that instruction is to be drawn. They should only be subservient to our main purpose. They should lie by us for occasional instruction only. When doubts and uncertainties arise, they may sometimes explain the difficulty and point to the truth. Frequently, however, they lead us astray. They are imperfect. Adherence to them has been the cause, and still continues to be, of perpetuating error among men, and that to an alarming extent. Ideas, when vended in a book, carry with them a kind of dignity and certainty which awe many into implicit belief. They often impose the most irrational and absurd conclusions on the fearful understanding. It dare not doubt. Fear keeps it ignorant. Authority lifts her head and commands instant belief. Reason, thus hushed into slumber, sleeps in secure repose. To dare to think for oneself, is denominated pride and arrogance, and millions of human minds are in this state of slavery and tyranny. How shall they escape? Rebel! Exclamation point. Think for themselves! Exclamation point. Let others grumble. Dare to be singular. Let others direct. Follow reason. Let others prattle. Practice. Let others profess. Do good. Let others define goodness. Act. Let others sleep. Whatever thy hand findeth to do, that do with all thy might, and let a gainsaying, calumniating world speculate on your proceedings. So very highfalutin language, very eloquent, and a lot packed in there. What is it about? Well, it starts off about books. Now, I found this in a book, so I can't criticize books too much. And earlier today, I was at the used bookstore and picked up How to Read a Book by Mortimer Adler, a book I've been trying to get a hold of. I love books. I love books more than the average person on my block. So, as much as I love books, I agree with some of what Bronson Alcott has written here. So let's go through that. So, it is not from books entirely that instruction is to be drawn. I think we can all agree that you can get a lot of knowledge, you can learn about many things about yourself, about the world, about history, about life, but sometimes you do need to put the book down, right? There's instruction to be gained from experience in the world. So what is the role of books? He goes on to say they should only be subservient to our main purpose. So books are not to be our slave. They are not to enslave us. They are to work for us, subservient. So these are our tools for whatever our main purpose is. They should lie by us for occasional instruction only. So like a hammer, you don't always have the hammer in your pocket. You don't always walk around with a hammer in your hand. But when you need a hammer, you want to make sure it's not too far away. So Bronson Alcott says that they should lie by us for occasional instruction only. When doubts and uncertainties arise, they may sometimes explain the difficulty and point to the truth. Frequently, however, they lead us astray. So books are to help us when we have doubts and uncertainties, and they should explain the difficulty and point to the truth. So they are not necessarily going to have the truth, but that they can point you to the truth. This reminds me of sort of religious teachers have talked about this. I believe it was Alan Watts, one of my favorite philosophers, talked about how a lot of the times Christians, and actually probably all sort of believers of different religions, sometimes hang so dearly to the Quran or the Bible or the teachings of Buddha, or they hold on to these books. They hold on to the things that they can get their hands on or their minds on, but actually, in fact, the Bible or the Quran or the teachings of Buddha are meant to point you to God, lead you to God, not something to be held on to. So Alan Watts had once used the metaphor of sort of religious instruction, and even religions themselves acting as a sign to God, like a finger pointing to the moon, But rather than actually look up at the moon, many believers suck on the finger. They get addicted to the Bible. And I think that's probably one of the reasons that people get very dogmatic about Scripture. The Bible says this, or the Quran says this, where actually, in fact, if you believe that God is real and that God is within you, then you believe that there's a divine light. And if you have a direct connection to God, as the people who even wrote the Bible or the holy books were inspired about, believed, then you shouldn't hold so firmly or tightly to those religious texts. And Bronson Alcott is extending that to all books, because books are sort of similar to religious books, maybe not as serious, but they are giving you knowledge and understanding and helping you flesh out your map of reality of the world and yourself. And I would like to just use a personal example on that. When I was trying to sort myself out, I think it's a lifelong mission to sort yourself out. But when I was really in the trenches, sorting myself out a few years ago, I had a library of books from Carl Jung, a very notable and brilliant psychologist of the early 20th century. And I clung to these books. I mean, I looked up all of my issues, psychological issues in Jung, and I treated his words almost like the Bible. But today, it's funny because now when I go back to these Jungian books, I only go back to Jung if I'm really if I need it, if I need some help. I don't seek out more Jung books. It's sort of, I had a phase where I used it sort of as like scripture, and now I just kind of use it as a tool. And even now, sometimes I disagree with him, because ultimately, and Terence McKenna, a philosopher from the latter half of the 20th century, once said, you read Freud, you read Jung to sort of get the maps of your soul or your psyche, but eventually you do your own voyaging, and then you alter the map to sort of have it more accurately fit your life. So I think what Bronson Alcott is talking about is that you have these books to point you towards the truth. You have these books to give you a map that's ready-made, but sometimes you have to put that map down and use your own eyes and look about you, because books will not give you the whole thing. Eventually you have to be the arbiter of your reality, of your truth, if I may be bold, so bold to say. All right, continuing on. And when he says that frequently books can lead you astray, they are imperfect, going back to my Jung example, there were some times that because I was in Christianity, I was a die-hard Christian when I was young. And I hope you don't take me as criticizing Jung or criticizing Christianity. These were Jung, as well as the people who wrote the Bible, far more profound than me, and have given me so much and enriched my life so much. So I'm not criticizing it. What I'm just trying to say is, with all books, like Bronson Alcott, with all ideas, with all thoughts that you get outside of, it's good, but you don't want it to enslave you, right? You don't want to be walking around and you're a walking Jungian dictionary, or you just repeat what you heard from CNN. You want them to be your own thoughts, your own ideas. And I think that's at the heart of what Bronson Alcott is saying. And if they do enslave you, and you go about looking at the world through a CNN lens, or a Fox News lens, or a Bible lens, or a Jungian lens, but only that lens and not your own eyes, then you might start bumping into things, because it's not perhaps the most accurate map of reality you can have, because you didn't actually take personal responsibility for, yes, using books as guides and using knowledge as guides, but also using your own senses and your own judgment. All right, going on. So yeah, adherence to them has been the cause. So when you adhere and just like hold on to those books, it's the cause, and still continues to be, of perpetuating error among men, and that to an alarming extent. Because if I read a book that says babies should be given food X, Y, and Z, and I try to do that to all my children, and maybe it works for 3 children, but the 4th one, it doesn't work. but I keep giving it to that child because that was the wisdom handed down to me by the expert. Well, I need to just look at the child. Is the child actually accepting this nourishment? Is it doing good things for their body? Because if you just mechanically follow the letters of someone else's ideas, you're going to have problems. I know I'm sort of going over it. It might be a little redundant. Follow me through, please. We'll get through this eventually. Ideas, when vended in a book, carry with them a kind of dignity and certainty which awe many into implicit belief. So, when you read these ideas written by someone with a very vast amount of knowledge, and they've written the book, it's published in 50 languages, this is the 30th edition, and you look at yourself and you're like, I'm Joe Nobody. Who am I to question you? But the problem is that awe, because these books carry with them the certain dignity and awe that you just believe it. You're a sucker for it, right? And I think there's a point, you do want to listen to experts, but you don't want to be overawed where you actually shut down your own reasoning faculties and critical faculties. They often impose the most irrational and absurd conclusions on the fearful understanding. It dare not doubt. Fear keeps it ignorant. Authority lifts her head and commands instant belief. Reason, thus hushed into slumber, sleeps in secure repose. So we have a fear of not understanding something. And so when we have these sort of dignified and certain ideas given to us about this topic, then we dare not doubt, because we fear to not understand it. We dare not doubt. Fear keeps it ignorant, so we stay ignorant. Reason, thus hushed. So our reason, because we're just afraid and we want to understand it, our reason gets hushed into slumber. So that thinking that you would actually take upon yourself and say, is this really true? Does it actually match my experiences? Are there any holes in it? If I put it in the water, will it sink? That reason gets hushed into slumber, sleeps in secure repose. So I'm not trying to bash anyone, but I have a person very close to me, and there's no reasoning with her, person I love very dearly, about anything regarding politics or religion or history or life, actually. It's pretty hard because they get their answers from their doctor or from Anderson Cooper or from their pastor, and that's it. They rely on authority, just like a sheep relies on a shepherd. And the thing is, well, what if one of those authority figures is wrong? What if your pastor's not right? Or at least not right in your case or this case? And because their reason is sleeping, you're not actually able to connect to them and communicate an idea because it's asleep. Same thing can happen with a book. If you put your reason to sleep and don't perhaps put the book down or question the book or use your own authority, then you will often be in this. You might accept these irrational, absurd conclusions based on the fearful understanding, and you might dare not doubt because of fear. So we're so afraid to question our teachers. We're afraid to question our pastors. We're afraid to question the news. We're afraid to question our doctors. But sometimes you really have to, right? You might be going down a blind alley, and you might make a huge mistake in your life if you do not question once in a while, or perhaps even often. And millions of human minds are in this state of slavery and tyranny. And I would say it's billions today. How shall they escape? So here's the solution. It's very easy to point out problems, but when someone points out the problem and then the solution, well, that's a nice, well-rounded discussion. So how do they escape? How do you escape from this tyranny of the certain and awe-inspiring ideas that you get in books? Rebel! think for yourselves, think for themselves. So that's what we have to do. Someone gives you, say, you need to do this, this, this because of that. You go, I don't know, let me think about it. You have to think for yourself. Well, why don't we do that? Because we're worried what other people are going to say. You mean you question the president? You question why we're bombing that country? You question taking the medicine that has a 10% chance to make your dick fail, It's like, yeah, I question that. I don't want to bomb that country unless there's a really good reason, and I'm not just going to take your word for it. And I'm not going to take that medicine if I don't know all the side effects, okay? I'm going to question. But we don't want to upset people around us who are all sort of going along with it. So rebel, think for themselves, let others grumble. So don't care about their opinion, let them grumble. Oh, look at him, he's questioning. Dare to be singular. Singular is unique, I have my mind. There is, Ralph Waldo Emerson, a friend of Bronson Alcott, once said, finally, there is nothing as sacred to me as the integrity of my own mind. I mean, I butchered that, but it's along those lines. Like, having your own thoughts is, for Emerson, that is the most sacred place. So not surprising that he was friends with Alcott. Dare to be singular. Let others direct. So others want to say, everyone go this way. You follow your reason, right? A gift from God, a gift from nature. You have this ability to reason and make up your own mind. If others are directing, that's fine. I mean, this is sort of one of those old cliche answers, but a lot of the misfortunate in the Holocaust were directed into those boxcars and shipped off to the concentration camps because they were following authorities. And I'm not, that's one harsh example. But the same stuff could happen today. Your parents could order you to go to business school when your heart says, no, buddy, study poetry. Follow your reason. You're better off following your reason than other people's orders. Let others dwell in the land of enchantments. Be men, right? It's so enchanting. Oh, yes. The cosmos is this because the scientist or the Bible teacher told me. Life is this because that's what my family says. The teachers, it's like, yeah, it's the land of enchantment because, you don't have any, your fears are quelled because you've just accepted everyone's painting of the world around you, but you don't have your own mind, It's nice to be, it's a childhood. Terence McKenna, the philosopher from the late 20th century, once said that culture has a neotenizing effect. So basically, culture is designed to keep us all as children so that you don't actually have the authority of your own mind, your own thoughts. So what Bronson Alcott is saying, let others dwell in the land of enchantment. Being a child, mama says this, daddy says this. Be men, be a full man, use your mind, use your voice, use your eyes. Let others prattle, practice. So while others talk, I'm a good person because of... Practice, be a good person. Let others profess, do good. Well, same, I'm a good person. Be a good person. Let others define goodness. People are going to say a good person is someone who works a job that they can't fucking stand because they got to contribute as a cog in the machine. That's not goodness to me. I'll act out my goodness, okay? I'll go to the park and read poetry. I'll support my family. I'll eat good food. Whatever goodness is to you, act it out, right? It's not about professing. It's not about talking. It's about doing. That's how you know what someone truly believes. It's not by what they say. It's not by prattling. It's not by professing. It's by their doing. Let others define goodness act. Let others sleep. Whatever thy hand findeth to do, that do with all thy might. So sometimes people are sleeping even when they're doing, right? You ever seen a person, they're doing something, they're like pushing their baby in the stroller and they're glued to their cell phone. They're in their land of enchantment, or they're, you know, cooking and they're just like a zombie. You know, what Bronson Alcott is saying, yeah, you know, that's how other people want to live their life, sort of by sleeping, because they've sort of shut down a lot of their inner faculties. Let your inner faculties come online, and whatever thy hand findeth to do, that do with all thy might. So really give some gusto, you know? Don't just, hi, I like to talk on YouTube. Not give a little soul. Give a little, give might and main, you know? And I'm guilty as well of sleeping, so. And let a gainsaying, calumniating world speculate on your proceedings. So gainsaying, calumniating, these are sort of criticisms, harsh censure. And the world likes to do that, right? Especially to singular men and women, people who are not herd animals, people who do not just follow the authorities, be they political, scientific, religious, educational authorities, who want to tell you how to live, what being good is, what being a man or a woman is, right? If you follow them, then you won't have to hear them grumble. But if you actually use your own mind, use your own reason, your own intuition, then you might start to live a different life than the herd, than the people who just go along in this land of enchantment, of authority following. And when you actually are singular and use your own mind, and you hear them grumble, and this world gainsays and calumniates at you, trying to say you're wrong, you're bad, you're terrible, let them speculate on your proceedings, because they're not right. If you're actually following your heart and your mind and your intuition, and you feel right about that, in your life manifests in a positive way, that's because you're actually living out your nature, the way that nature made you, right? You're not shoving your square peg into a round hole. You're actually being you, right? And others might speculate and say, he's wrong, he's not a good husband, or she's not a good mother, or you're not a good Christian, or you're not a good American, or whatever. But that's all their speculation. It's not correct. Maybe it's like, in the eyes of the world, you know, that's their opinion, but in the eyes of nature and the highest authority, you know, nature, God, or yourself, your own experience, you're in good stead. So that was a long video on Bronson Alcott's letter, December 6th, 1826. I don't know who this was to, but if you like that thinking, I highly recommend reading any of the American transcendentalists. This has a hodgepodge or a carefully edited selection of various thinkers that I have really only begun to crack into this. I love Ralph Waldo Emerson and Henry David Thoreau, where this sort of belief in your inner light, but their belief in your ability to divine truth, at least truth that is part of what makes you human, by using your intuition, by going into nature and using your own faculties to look at life, to look at God, to look at the universe, to look at nature, and help scaffold you up into becoming fully realized. I know that was so wrong. I'm not nearly as eloquent as these thinkers, so that's why I'm bringing them to you. Anyways, I hope you like this video. I hope that you share it, and I'll see you next time. My name is Ryan Freeman. Dare to think, rebel, think for yourselves,